All right, folks, welcome. It's taken us a couple of minutes to go live and get everyone on board. And Mr. Adi Severe is definitely late to the party, and we'll see if and when he manages to turn up. I know he's a busy man, and there are tech issues left, right, and centre today. So, welcome everyone. As you come in, you're more than welcome. There is a chat feature where you can, down the bottom there, introduce yourself, say hi as you're coming in. Whole bunch of people already in, filling up really fast. There is also a Q&A feature where you can click on the Q&A if there is any specific question that you want to ask rather than make a comment. Feel free to use the Q&A and we will try and get to it as soon as we can. So I'm going to go around the table, do a very, very brief introduction in regards to the team because they should be all very, very well known to you all by now. And then I'll get them to just kick off and we're going to rip into some of these very, very interesting questions and very interesting times for the world of professional sport. So as I'm looking at the screen from right to left, we have Mr. Karl Budge, who is fucking legend when it comes to everything to do with tennis. Jesus Christ, we were that freaking close to having a decent surf competition in New Zealand, like days away. So there is some great conversations to be had around that. Glenn Critchley has probably got the most unenviable job in New Zealand Rugby League right now, commercial manager for the Vodafone Warriors. And the Mr. Wildcard himself, the man who always thinks outside the box, the man who is coming up with sporting events, ideas and partnerships that could be the way of looking to the future of sport and commercial arrangements in the country, Mr. Nick Rowland from Side by Side. Welcome, guys.
Hello, mate.
Hey, mate.
Good to be here.
Yes. Oh, my God. What the hell sort of twilight zone have we walked into when it comes to this industry and sporting bodies, not just in New Zealand, but the world over. Let's just do a quick round the table. What's the current state of the business that you're in and the short-term outlook in regards to where you see things are happening? Because I know they're changing day by day. Karl, I know you were mentioning it briefly before we came on live. How's things looking for you?
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting time, Glenn. It's to me, it's actually a really exciting time. But while there's a heap of challenge and a heap of disruption, and within days, our entire business framework for professional sport was ripped out from underneath us. It's kind of exciting times too that we're living in an opportunity to fix the problems that sport as an industry is pretty poor at trying to fix. We're very chained to history and heritage, and COVID-19 has come in and given us a hell of a platform to come and rip up the rule book and do things differently. So state of flux for sure, state of unknown for sure, like a lot of businesses. But I'm sitting here, maybe it's because I've had 2.5 weeks at home with my daughter, but I'm sitting here feeling pretty optimistic about life.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it, right? We've only got every day as it comes right now, and you got to make the most of now. Glenn, what's happening with the Warriors, mate? This seems to be the question that we ask every season, but this is a very different question.
Well, I don't know if you guys have been watching Sky Sport recently, but we've the last couple of weeks we're 2-0 at the moment. So tune in again this week, and I reckon we'll have another win on the cards. It's almost like a guaranteed at the moment. It's quite good. No, mate, I'm a little bit like Budgie, to be fair, mate. I've got a 47-year-old at home, and probably that's the most I spent with him. So I think it sort of lends itself to, as an individual, to I guess reassess everything that's important to you. It's been fantastic from that sense. It's also given me a lot of opportunity just to think. In the day-to-day world of the Vodafone Warriors, we spend a lot of time sort of in the here and now, and you've got another game next week, and you just roll on from one thing to the next. So actually giving a little bit of opportunity to take a step back, look at everything that we do, and potential opportunity to really shake things up, and I just want it's a chance to recreate something and look at those things that maybe might be not as efficient as they could be, and look at ways in which we can change that. When it comes to the actual competition itself, it's up there at the moment. I believe there's a decision due to be made this Friday, which if it all goes ahead, the boys will be playing May 28th, or the weekend of the May 28th. So I think that would mean that the players would be leaving the country next week, spending a couple of weeks in isolation and then getting into it. But there's a ton of work that needs to be done into that space, and I also think there's some real challenges in that sort of world around the isolation requirements and of the COVID world we live in now. You know, if you're going into that space, you're going to have to, you know, essentially shut down an entire stadium and shut down 100 people at a time, and all those people will be away from their families and friends for, you know, that period. So it's a really tough ask on the playing group, not just from a Warriors perspective, but also, you know, the other 15 teams. You know, it's to spend 3-4 months potentially locked away from your families is a big ask.
Rowley, what's happening with you, mate? The world of individual, unique, and outrageous little sporting events, even side by side, is taking a bash.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I guess the last few weeks I've kind of settled into being a full-time nanny, which has been great. But I guess aside from that, it's you know, you kind of go through ups and downs. And when you're in a little business, I guess like side by side, you've been through ups and downs for 4 years. So this is just another, I guess, down period. But I guess I'm at the point now of coming out and going, okay, what's exciting? What's happening? What are we seeing happen around the world? And adjusting and looking at those sort of things, and how can we bring that sort of platform into New Zealand. So as the lads have said, it's you kind of go through that down, but I guess most people now kind of starting to get on a little bit of the up to saying, okay, what's exciting, what's going to be new, how can we be more innovative, how can we be a little bit different in the way we're putting events together, and adjusting based on, you know, I guess the current environment. And you know, all things are saying that's not going to be easy for the next 12 to 18 months, potentially 2 years, especially from a crowd and you know, travel point of view when people are coming from out of the country. But at the same time, you can do a lot more digitally than what you could have in the 90s. So, you know, how do you adjust and do things a bit differently to encapsulate the fandom and get the people still engaged with sporting organisations and within sport? Yeah,
for sure. Now, not necessarily the greatest option for tennis, cricket, rugby league, but it's been fascinating seeing the rise of the esport side of it when it comes to motor racing, and seeing those lads jump in and do that. I think that could be an absolute fascinating space to watch. But if I can focus on rugby league for a moment at least, Glenn, well, the decision's going to be made in the next week. There is, you know, let's face it, is there next to no chance that we might see the competition come over here if we've got better, let's say, safety in respect to all of the players and everything like that? Would that not be for me, that would be the utopia of the NRL if we managed to flip it all the way around and said, well, look, New Zealand has got this thing under control. We can turn it into a mini World Cup type environment where every team had its own host city, and we could go from there. But I imagine that would be far from anything that's on the cards. He's looking pretty still.
Oh, sorry, apologies. It just cut out on me. You got about halfway through talking about everyone coming to New Zealand, and then it cut out on me. So apologies for that.
I was just saying that would be my version of utopia, is if the NRL decided, well, New Zealand's got the best option, we can have it as a mini Rugby World Cup type environment and use different host cities. Everyone comes to New Zealand, and
the biggest challenge we've got is there's 15 Australian teams that would probably kick up a massive fuss about coming over the side of the ditch. It was okay when we were the one team over there doing it for a couple of weeks, but I suggest they'd have some different ideas. It's a really hard one, I think, from an NRL perspective. There's been so many different ideas that have been bandied around from an NRL perspective. It's similar to what other sporting leagues are trying to do around the world. Baseball, they're talking about going to Arizona, basketball, but I think it all comes down to the human aspect of it and the safety behind it. Unfortunately, everything I understand, without having any form of medical experience, but everything I understand is this thing is so is so easily transferred. Even just having a game is a risk, and then you've got the restrictions you've got to put in place for that are pretty monumental. And if we could have it in New Zealand, I think fantastic. I think think of things like the tennis. You'd hope that come January there might be some opening of some borders, and then I think tennis as a sport potentially lends itself a bit more. Tennis, golf, those more sort of individual sports lend itself a little bit more to potentially being able to get up and running a little bit easier and earlier. When you've got 13 blokes or 26 blokes on a field running into each other and tackling each other, and 4 or 5 people, it's an interesting one. Again, obviously, there's a lot to be worked through when it comes to the safety of the players and what that means to the competition. So, well, I mean, certainly from a commercial perspective, the game, from a governing body, but also from a club perspective, we need the game up and running. We're working through all sorts of scenarios, like Budge was saying before, in terms of,
well, you better watch it, mate, because
members and corporates and everything else. So that's a challenge.
I'm gunning for your job because the next idea I had was I think a stroke of genius. There's another reality TV program coming out, which is a great opportunity with that island that put themselves forward. It could be Love Island NRL, where we have that reality show where we follow each of the teams around and the boys up to all their antics over a 15-week lockdown on an island off the coast of Queensland.
Yeah. I don't know about that one. It'll be very. I think the boys would go stir crazy.
15 weeks of Mad Monday.
Oh, yeah. I think it'd be a dangerous environment, to be fair.
I had to watch Tiddlywinks at the moment, to be fair. I just want some competition. I'm gutted Artie's not on the call. We had a robust debate around our boys chat on who out of Artie Xavier and Sam Cane were most likely to come up with the vaccine for COVID-19, and went through a really good and robust debate around who and why. And we came up with that Artie would have come up with it first, but he was probably on the wing, unable to get it to anyone, while Sam Cane would have been in the middle, just dishing it out and getting the job done. So that's the depths that we've struggled to get some form of banter going on sports chat.
Yeah, well, as Glenn very well pointed out, tennis is probably open a lot more to making its way through some of these restrictions. But with quarantine in place, you must have all sorts of different scenarios that you're working through.
Yeah, our biggest problem, and I'm not sure there's a more global professional sports league than tennis. While there's other, golf is very global and who it represents. By and large, you're in America if you're playing the PGA. You don't really have to leave the US. The European Tour, a little bit different, but there's not too many sports that are truly global like tennis is. Premier League's just in the UK or whatever it might be. We are, every week we're in a different country, and probably more importantly, every week the players are coming from a different country themselves. So even the flow of athletes isn't consistent. So that's our big challenge. What borders do get opened up and to whom? If you have a scenario that, let's pick on the top 10, 6 of the players in the top 10 come from nations that are able to travel freely, but 4 can't. How is that unique situation dealt with? So we've got some real challenges in that space, which makes it unique. But I think our sport itself lends itself to getting back and participating pretty quickly. But our enemy here is really going to be mobility.
Yeah, for sure. I've got a great question for you that's come through, Nick. It shows the depth and the level of the passion and the interest in and around all these unique sporting events. Are pets allowed to be used as fielders in backyard cricket?
Well, I saw that come through, actually. I think technically in your own backyard, which is what people are doing now, they probably can. Officially at the backyard bash, we don't allow pets, unfortunately. Comes down to council restriction.
Absolutely. And another good one coming through from Alex. It's really tailored to all of you, but I'd be interested in hearing from you first on this, Nick, in regards to activations and partnerships. How do you go about fulfilling all of your partners' assets if we do move into crowdless stadiums, and how do you still keep the fan engagement going with your partners?
Yeah, I guess that comes down to, in some ways, what sport you're talking about and things like that. But There are digital ways of doing it. I mean, a lot of sports have kind of played in this space a little bit in the last couple of years, and I think that'll be a heightened awareness for those sports and teams now. You can do a lot of things from an engagement point of view with your athletes. I mean, a lot of the athletes at the moment are sitting at home doing trick shots, so there's a bunch of time that they've got in their hands to do some extra stuff. I've heard of a couple of brands that have come on board and kind of extended their partnerships just, through this period to keep the sports running. And from that, they've got a huge amount of uptake from a digital point of view with some of their players putting together videos, especially for those sponsors, which probably wouldn't have normally happened in the normal circumstances. So they're still getting the brand or the sponsor out there in a way and out to the fans. And you've just got to get a little bit creative on I guess, what specific assets are there, and that sort of stuff. And we look at something like, you mentioned it earlier, the Formula One. They had 3.2 million impressions on that race a couple of weeks ago, or people watching from throughout the world. That's big numbers. And, you're getting, I think the supercars, for example, they're getting close to 45% of viewership that they would normally get on their supercars races each weekend. So you're still getting people watching them. The fans are still there. I've got a mate working in the racing industry in Aussie at the moment. That's the only sport that's rolling over there, and they're seeing massive numbers. Look at it. So you do have to you get a bit creative on how you do it. Zoom's a wonderful tool. There's some other tools out there. There's virtual picking. I saw something popped up the other day, an indoor Olympics championship that someone's put together, so you can do kind of stuff around home and engage, and they've got a whole bunch of sponsors on board for that. So it's just about, the hard thing, I guess, from a commercial perspective and a sponsor's perspective is it might not necessarily be anything that you're doing that these sponsors are going to end up pulling out, because if they're making stuff redundant, the last thing they're going to do is sponsor someone. And you've seen the likes of the flight centres and NZME, a few more today by the sounds of it, and a bunch of those businesses that Burger King obviously is gone into receivership, I think, for the third time in 5 years or something. So they're they're not going to go and sponsor something if they've got your own staff getting made redundant. So you do have to be careful in the way you treat with some of these sponsors, because it may not be anything that you've done. It's just the pure fact that they can't be seen to be doing that sort of thing. So you've got to pick and choose the right ones, I suppose.
I probably have a slightly different view to Nick on this. I think, to me, when you look through negative times, when the GFC hit, no one was advertising for brand managers, but there was plenty of people advertising for sales managers or business development managers or alike. Where our sales pipeline's never been more important than it is today. And so I think if you're a property that can stimulate sales and stimulate deal flow, then I think you're going to be well positioned during this process. I think your traditional brand slapping and alike is probably going to be pretty tough. Yeah. But if you're someone that's able to genuinely deliver, dollars in pocket, then I think you're going to be positioned pretty well. I also think from a activation perspective, it really depends on who you are and what you're trying to achieve. Because if I pick on the ASB Classic as an example, we over-index massively on F&B partners because of the experience we deliver. I think we did $3.2 million worth of F&B over the fortnight this year, of which I think there was some astronomical amount of champagne sales. So how a Moet would activate around the ASB Classic versus a ASB would be two very, very different things. It's the objectives around it are entirely different. And so, some of those problems you're simply not able to solve as readily as others. But I think, to me, a strong business going into COVID-19 will be a strong business coming out of COVID-19. Your business hasn't changed. Your circumstances have, but your business and your business model coming out of it will still be a strong business model if you've come into it well prepared.
Yep.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, you are seeing the weak ones probably start to fall away shortly, but if you are strong, and that's the other thing, is the good businesses will double down right now. If they've got a bit of cash in the bank, they'll get the right salespeople, they'll get the right people on board to when we come out of this, or when we kind of change the way in which we do things, they'll be far better off. So if you've got the ability to be able to do that and double down and get some things relatively cheaply, probably, then you'll come out the other side better off.
I think there's never been a better time to be building a business too. If you look through, the cost of employment is certainly a whole lot better than what it was 12, 18 months ago. Your ability to go out and create deal flow is very different to what it was even 6 months ago. So, there's some real challenges. Don't get me wrong. There's some massive challenges ahead of us. But if you do have the right concept and you're innovative in your approach, there's also unprecedentedly easier opportunities for us to go out and make a bit of a splash too.
Yeah, Glenn, with Warriors being under new ownership and such, like, is there a little more security behind the business now, and is it still like a massive part in regards to securing additional sponsors and keeping those sponsors happy, or because it's really uncertain times for you guys?
Yeah, it is. We're really fortunate with the ownership structure that we've got in place at the moment with the guys at Mark Robertson, the guys at Ortex. Obviously as a business, they're going through their own challenges. As a global manufacturing business, so their factories are shutting down, they're not producing their products and things like that. So that's certainly a challenge. But in saying that, I think every piece of correspondence we've had through the owners, through our CEOs, is that we're in it for the long haul, and they're doing everything they can to make sure that at the end of this, and when things eventually come back to normal, or some form of normal, that everyone, at the clubs has their jobs and things like that. So we've been really fortunate in that sense to have that backing. I think when it comes to the sponsorship and the commercial side of it, so far so good. For us, we've been really fortunate. The majority of our partners have been around for a number of years. I mean, I've been at the club for, this was coming up, it's going to be my 8th season. And the reality being is that the majority of the sponsors have been with us the entire time. And we're really fortunate that we have had that really strong backing. The likes of the Vodafones of the world, Canterbury, etc. We're really lucky, and that's just been reinforced during this time. I guess when it comes down to Budge's point, I think it is an opportunity for brands, both not just from a sponsorship perspective, but also from just a broad marketing perspective. You've got to stay active, you've got to stay front of mind, because at some stage we will get through this. And if you sort of try and put your head into the sand and hopefully get through it that way, I think you're going to be behind the 8 ball when things back up and running again. We're doing a bit of it where we can. It's really interesting on the activation front. That reliance on digital is huge now for us. It's been something that we've been really growing over the last couple of years, and we're really fortunate that we've got a really strong footprint in that space, and now it's really coming to the fore as how do we utilise that. Challenge being is, I guess, you've now only got one channel, so all of our sponsor focus does become through that one funnel. But if we can get the right idea, we've had our first ever Zoom call with players on the weekend. We did something with Best Foods through a new partner this year, where we had half a dozen fans jump on a call for half an hour with 3 of the players, and we'll be doing the same thing this week. And
it's awesome.
It's a really basic concept that we'd never consider. We had a guy from Wollongong, a family from somewhere on the Hauraki Plains, and a couple of guys from Hamilton, all on the call talking to the players. And the reality being is that we would have never actually even considered that as an activation idea, and you'd have these fans, not just throughout New Zealand, but also overseas, that can't get close to their players. But all of a sudden, it's actually a new platform and a new opportunity. So it could be something that you actually rolled out moving forward, because it worked. I mean, obviously, it takes a little bit of time for some of those awkward Zoom conversations. It's like your worst ever conference call. But once we got through that first couple of minutes, it was away laughing.
Yeah, and what a great way to leverage technology to really connect with the fan base at a low cost, low touch, and low involvement sort of rate for the players as well. When you've got your players that are being pulled from pillar to post, and you've got commitments left, right, and centre, 10 minutes, even 15 minutes here and there, you can reach out and have an amazingly special experience for people that wouldn't think that they could get that sort of access anywhere in the world. I think that's fantastic.
I saw that. I think the Hurricanes did something last week where I think a few of their players, I mean, just something as basic, and we've done it over the years, just to get our players to ring out and thank fans. It's simple, something as simple as that, which means the world to people. And it's quite humbling. I think for the playing group, it also shows to them, and that's probably something that for me has been probably the highlight of my job every year. It's sort of that thing that really keeps you going is you don't fully appreciate, and it's easy to forget sometimes how much the Vodafone Warriors and their players mean to people. You know, like you see working in that environment, you see these guys on a day-to-day basis, but then you actually see them, you know, engage with someone on a Zoom call, or they just to pick up a phone and chat, and you know, the people on the other end often are absolutely lost for words. So it's a good opportunity and a good chance for the players to sort of, I guess, look at that and realise the role that they play, not just as athletes, but actually as as idols for these people as well.
Yeah, so
I think the essence of sponsorship to me is connecting with people through something they're passionate about, and to me, nothing has proven the importance of what sport does for a community than what COVID-19 has produced. You know, whether it's your local school sports team all the way through to the Warriors. We are missing that. We are missing it more than it has highlighted just how passionate we really are. And so the savvy marketers out there that are far better than I'll ever be will figure out a way that there's where there's community, where there's passion, there's results. And I think we've just got to be more nimble, as Glenn, in the simple analogy that he just gave then. I think we've just got to, as rights holders, be much more nimble in our approach, and not necessarily, and this has been my approach the whole way through COVID-19 to date, not necessarily say yes to everything, but certainly not say no to anything. And I think, if we can stay nimble, there's all the wonderful things of what we do are being sorely missed right now. And if we can hold on, we'll navigate pretty well out of this.
100%. Yeah. As part of that, you've seen, I've never seen so much demand for rugby in my life. Rugby absolutely floods our TV screens every year. We haven't had it for 3 weeks, and everyone's like, holy shit, when's rugby coming back? So it's really interesting, the amount of people that kind of start reaching out going, okay, when's rugby coming back on? And, looking at the Mitre 10 Cup, it could be a completely different competition this year with potentially All Blacks there if they can't travel. And, all of a sudden my team, Taranaki, goes pretty strong. But, it's really, really interesting in what not having something, the demand that grows, and how, I guess, businesses could partner up to see some of that.
Rowley, I'm going to have to have a word to I'm going to have a word to Jacinda, mate, and make sure that when you're coming out of this lockdown, that it is about your provincial union and not the one you signed up to, where you actually come from. Yeah. As the mighty red, black, and white counties are going to be roaring back in with all of the natural talent that we have.
Well, what I've always loved about Rowley is he's ever the optimist and a fucking dreamer. But I mean, on that note, what do we see happening with local sport? Now, I can see a lot of small sporting event companies are really going to struggle and potentially fold, but that could open up the opportunity for some of the larger events to actually come back bigger, faster, stronger, and better.
Yeah, I think this is a real opportunity. I mentioned up front that I think some of the piece that we've been potentially a little bit lazy on for a number of years around around the sporting experience. I think this is going to throw us into the modern age, and probably aside the ASB Classic, if I'm allowed to say that, crowd numbers have been dwindling. The in-stadium experience has been pretty woeful. Why would you on a shitty, wet, cold Auckland night leave your house to go and watch live sport at the moment? That the experience hasn't been good enough, and I think this is going to propel us into a new world of going, actually, no, we're going to get that live event experience buzz back. We're going to want to sit next to our friends. There is no more passionate fan base in the Warriors voice than go and sit amongst it and be part. You can't replicate that at home. You've got to be there, and I think to me that's a really exciting piece. So I look forward 5 years from now, despite the headwinds we're obviously going to have to face as we go into it. I think the outcome's going to be a rejuvenated live event experience, which is going to be pretty cool for all of us.
Yeah, I
think that there might still be some reticence for people to turn up to sporting venues in the early days when we do come back.
Yeah, I think short term, absolutely. Bill Gates is saying we're 18 months away from having a vaccine. Whether that changes anything or not, I think the world will be different. It won't be the same. But I too see, full stadiums all of a sudden for some of potentially the minor sports, not even the major ones, because they're going, no, I actually do want to go out because that time I couldn't. I absolutely hated it. So I do want to go out and be in the fan and be in this, get the stand. And I guess that's up to us as rights holders and sporting codes to really make sure that we get that as slick process as possible. So we don't fall back into, I guess, oh yeah, no, it's easier just to get the cold beer out of the fridge at home and go and watch it on TV.
Now's the time to be a fan too. Let's support those that we're passionate about. I put up a post that stirred a bit of debate. I think two of you boys commented on it actually, but around us getting out and supporting Sky TV at the moment. And now's the time to be loyal to those that have served you well. And I think when we come out of this, everyone's talking about the local cafe and the local restaurant and all that sort of stuff, which is awesome. And please go and do all of that. But at the same time, now's the time for those that you're really passionate about. I'm a Warriors fan. I have been since day one. Instead of watching at home like I always do, or relying on Glenn giving me a free ticket, let's go and actually purchase one and go and turn up and go and be a fan and help those that we do care so passionately about. Let's actually show it this time.
I think we should turn the entire stadium into the Mad Butcher's Lounge.
Well, the weird thing is, Butch was even constrained that this might be his final year of running his lounge as well. But I think with all the things that happen, we might convince him to go around one more year, I think. But I agree with what the boys are saying. Ultimately, it is a chance for everyone to just band together. I think that's probably been one of my biggest outtakes from this, is that everyone's in it together, and no one's, for want of a better way to put it, no one's immune from the impacts of COVID-19. It's just what you've been doing here, Glenn, getting people together, what Nick about posting. I think everyone's sort of offering up support where they can. So it's exactly what you're saying, people supporting the local cafe, the local, whatever it might be, once we get out of lockdown. But it is really important because the reality being, we're in sport in New Zealand, we're not set up, we're not America, we're not the UK when it comes to the finances behind things. Even you compare it, you look at us, Warriors might be perceived as the largest sporting franchise we've got here, but the reality being is, we're not a big business by any means, and that's fan support that we do have on the support from our fans, our members, our corporates, our sponsors is absolutely fundamental to us operating as a club. The real reality we face is that through not having a season this year, still the potential in not having any games here, that's a huge amount of revenue that we lose as a business, which could ultimately mean there'll be jobs lost at the back end of it. But I think it really puts it in perspective of just how important it is to for everyone to stick together and have a little bit more patience and just collaborate through this.
One of the concerns I've had, and a lot of the focus, I guess, goes on people like us because we're, when I say us, I mean people like the Warriors and the ASB Classic and events like, the ones that are on the news each night. And I get that it's what's front of mind. My worry for our industry at the moment is what all of the people at home at the moment that are sourcing entertainment from other areas that don't have the fandom of the Warriors like we do. How do we get them back? I'm lucky enough I focus on professional sport. I don't have to worry about grassroots and pathways and all of those wonderful areas that people do amazing jobs in. But how are we getting Ripper Rugby going? How are we getting Kiwi cricket going to this generation that hasn't? You've got all these people sitting inside seeking entertainment in other areas, and I worry about that. I don't know what's been done to keep the young engaged in sport and wanting to get back into sport. I don't have any answers to it. It's just something that in the back of my mind I keep worrying about.
I'm going to be very controversial here, and I'm going to say I am still a massive believer that we should get rid of schoolboy rugby and have it all through the clubs the whole way through. I think it's I loved schoolboy rugby when I was playing it, but there is this massive drop off when it comes to the clubs when they go from club footy into the schools, and then they finish schoolboy rugby, and it's like the massive drop-off with people re-engaging. And I think if there is a way that we can get that grassroots sports aligned with a club the whole way through, you're going to get a much greater consistency of people coming through the system, and stop the BS political bollocks that's associated with schoolboy sport.
Yeah, and I guess part of this, Sport New Zealand went on a big delivery focused on their new strategy over the next few years, and it was probably 3 months ago, so it's significantly changed as the outputs now. I guess some of the community organisations, a lot of our clubs are run by volunteers at the end of the day. They're not going to be professional. They don't have professional nous around how to do different things. So I guess part of the work that a lot of people like your actives, like some of the RSTs of the world, is that they're just trying to help. I'm on the board at Sport Waitakere, for example. All our staff are chopping and changing the day-to-day jobs for what they have been doing, to just reaching out to these clubs and partners and saying, what are you doing? Where are you at? And a lot of them, they haven't even thought about it because they're worried about their own livelihood. They're worried about their own jobs, and the sport goes on the back burner. So, I mean, a little bit controversial. I don't think a lot at this stage has been done in that grassroots sector. Everyone's obviously gone on hold. So now, I guess, as organisations start to develop their thinking around how this is going to unfold, then you may start to see some more innovation. But it's hard to get them off the couch when, essentially for a month, every kid's been at home doing that, and sitting on the couch and watching Netflix and watching, Tiger King and whatever it is. How do we then get them off the couch to go and be out within the sports environment? And the new, we still keep it to 100 people. It's not going to help that situation. So it's going to be an interesting one how that all unfolds, and it's about how do the NSOs go from a national sports organisation right the way through to the club, and how do we upskill those club professionals and the boards to essentially get people out playing different sports. I mean, some of the restrictions have been tough. I've come from a golf background, and half the golf clubs in New Zealand are probably a bit stuffed now. I think they've turned on the mowers again today, but 2 weeks without mowing the green doesn't go too well from a golfing perspective. So there's a little bit of that sort of cleanup, but I think long term, it's how do we develop the messaging as a collective, both from a professional level right the way down to the grassroots, what good sport does for the community, and that's going to be a tough one to come back from after the next little while, when you've got 5 to 10-year-olds that can't play sport right now.
I think we're just going to really be mindful of the entire ecosystem too, and Rowley touched on the important roles that volunteers play in our club sport, and it's massive, and it's the backbone of our industry. But at the same time, if you flip it to a sport like tennis, where the people delivering our product by and large are small businesses. You've got your local tennis coach currently has no employment. Now, who's looking after them? What's the process for them? As a compensation package for whatever comes out of the discussions that have been had at the moment, that's going to go to the NSO. Where's that going to filter, and what regulations are going to be, or what conditions are placed on how that filters through the system? Does it stop at the NSO who's bled themselves? It's a tough one for them who are going to be on their knees. How does it get down to your local club coach that relies on having people on a court every hour of the day? It's a pretty brutal environment for a lot of people. And so while the attention's been sucked up on, I guess the high profile mainstream ones of us, there's a lot of hurt right throughout the ecosystem at the moment. That's pretty worrisome.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's interesting. You look at, there's some sort of NSOs and clubs that seem to be doing a really good job of it. I think one's the Netball New Zealand of keeping people fairly engaged with the sport through the net fit or whatever it is called at the moment, which is great. And I know my son, he's involved with a local soccer club or football club, and they have created a whole pile of videos that they send out on a weekly basis of just keeping the kids involved in skills and drills, and they've done that right through from the 5 to 8 year olds right up until sort of 15-year-olds and different skill levels and different drills that can be involved. So that said, that club I think is by all accounts one of the biggest football clubs in Auckland, so they've probably got a lot more support than, to your point, Karl, some of those smaller clubs that may not have the resource to create that sort of content. So it is a huge challenge, and like I say, it's not just limited to the high-profile sporting organisations. It's if you look at just where we are on Beasley Ag, we've got Auckland Rugby League and New Zealand Rugby League and us all in a couple hundred metres of each other, and this is a massive challenge for all three parties just to keep the game of rugby league going in the country.
I think that's a really great thing that footy club is doing for your kids. And I think there's also, within that, there is a massive opportunity for those clubs that are producing that sort of content to actually free it up for kids from any club. And that can actually strengthen that club's base and support as well. So, and it doesn't matter what size club it is, if they are out there doing that and providing that for their member base, then that could really bring some stability and attract new members within that. So I think that's genius.
Yeah, and I thought, another example I saw pop up the other day was Triathlon New Zealand have done a thing they've called the Zwift or something, which was an online triathlon essentially that people could log into, creates an avatar, and you're timed against everyone else in the country. They've actually grown their overall membership nationwide because of that in the last week. And so new people who have never been involved in triathlon have come to the sport to compete because they're not doing anything else at home. So if you can be innovative and I guess look at things a little bit differently, non-traditional, then there's potential in that for some of these NSOs to actually grow through this period, because at the end of the day, a lot of people, when I say NSOs, I mean sport, there's a lot of people sitting around doing not a lot at the moment, that, there's working, but they reckon 50% of the population isn't working. Builders and things, they can't do anything right now. So there's a lot of people out there that are sitting around not doing a lot, and there is potential to get them, to come in. It's obviously harder for team sports because you can't get 11 football players together or 13 rugby league players together. But some of those individual sports will come out probably a little bit stronger through this period.
Absolutely. Hi guys, we could carry this conversation on all afternoon, and I personally would be dead keen to, but I'm just conscious of everybody's time. So I'm gonna wrap it up, and if we can just maybe go around the traps, we'll start with Nick first maybe, and so what's something that you're absolutely looking forward to as we come out of this as an opportunity?
One, to see the 3 Barrett boys put on the Taranaki jersey. It's probably one thing. But I guess secondly, I think I'm most excited about how some of these team sports will innovate and how can they do things differently. If you literally can't get people to a game and you can't, have crowds, or potentially can't even have a game go on, what are they going to do? And I think everyone's in a state of flux at the moment, a bit worried about, okay, what do we need to do? But there will be some thinking going on right now as to how they can develop and how they can do things differently. And I'm really looking forward to, I guess, digitizing sport is probably the wrong way of putting it, because I don't want people sitting on a TV at home or on a phone at home. But how do we do something differently, deliver a sport in a different way, still engage audience and still grow your kind of sponsorships, but doing it in some ways, it can be probably a little bit more cost effective in the way that it can be done than what it currently is. So, that for me is really, really exciting, is how to see these sports and what sports do adapt properly and do things a little bit differently.
Yep. Budge.
I'm just looking forward to getting back together. I think we've never our environment, what we all deliver is, as I said earlier, the thing that we're sorely missing more than anything, I think, at the moment. I cannot wait for us to get back together, and I think from your Diwalis and your Lantern festivals through to the Warriors and the All Blacks, I think you're going to see a real shift of us all getting back together and creating a culture of attending. I don't care whether that's a music event, an arts event, a speaker series, whatever it might be. Us just getting back a culture of getting out and going to things, and if that happens, we'll all succeed.
Totally, Glenn.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I think that's exactly what I'd say as well. Is that people coming together. I mean, again, I guess from a personal perspective, is the Sunday afternoon or a night game at Mount Smart and hearing the crowd roar, and Rog leads the team out for the first time once we get all through this. This will be that's probably what we're just hanging on to. But I think from a broader perspective, it is looking at it and going, okay, well, right up front, I think we've now got time. Again, we've done things a certain way for a number of years now. So what's the opportunity? How do we? And it's not change for change's sake, but how do we really have a good chance to look back and look at exactly what we're doing and how do we improve and how do we be better? I mean, I think probably something I saw that Jason Paris, who's the Vodafone CEO, checked on his LinkedIn. It sort of, talked about how all businesses having an inefficiency, and how just narrowing the focus down to things that create the largest customer and commercial value, and then basically stopping and removing everything else. And that to me is a really good way of sort of looking at it, and a good lens at essentially everything that I'm trying to do at the moment. It's like, what are we doing that actually really adds value both to our fans and our commercial partners? If it doesn't add value, why are we doing it? And it's a good chance to reassess that at the moment. So,
yeah, that's right.
No, I absolutely agree that there's massive opportunity for us to come out of this, and for people to have this real desire to reconnect and to come together. Ironically, the biggest challenge that we've had leading into this era is people have used social media to escape, and now it's actually given people the opportunity to connect. And I think people are starting to realise the importance of that connection and that feeling of belonging and being together, which gives me massive hope for team sporting events, for live events and things like that. But I think also on the flip side of it, the big winner out of this is going to be online streaming of events. And I think the real big next platform that's going to come out is going to be something along the lines of the Expedia/Airbnb/Booking.com of live streaming, where they aggregate live sport and live events from all over the world, and you can pick and choose which one you want to watch. And I think watch this space. I think it's going to be a real opportunity for them to be the web jet of streaming sports, whoever they are. If you got a few 100 million, just flick me a message, glenn@Konnector.co.nz, and I'll gladly lead it up for you. But hey guys, I really appreciate you taking the time. There are a bunch of questions that we just haven't managed to get across, but I think for the best part, through the gist of the conversation, we've covered most of them. I'd love to get back together, probably not long after we come out of this, maybe in a month or so, and just do that, V2. Where are we at? What's happening? What's the state of the nation, and what are the exciting developments? So I really appreciate you coming on board. I know there's a heap of people that have been screaming for something like this, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys are taking time out of your busy new normal to give back to the community. Cheers, guys, and have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
See you, folks.